Thank you, Brian. So let's start with a land acknowledgement. Here we go. All right, let me play this video. That's not even funny. There we go.
So I'm Ganyak Gahaga, I'm Turtle Clan, and I'm from the community of Ganasadage. I'm an artist. I am an activist and an advocate for peace, justice for Indigenous peoples, human rights, and the environment. I think land acknowledgements are important so that non-Indigenous peoples realize that the land that their homes are on, the lands in which they are having their meetings, are still part of an Indigenous territory. They're still part of Indigenous homelands. And if they can understand that a land acknowledgement is more than just mere words, that it goes deeper than that, in the fact that thousands and thousands of generations of Indigenous people have walked this part of the world, this land, I think it's helpful. What I don't like is land acknowledgements just for the sake of looking politically correct. So I think for non-Indigenous peoples, then this is just the first evolution of reconciliation, part of it, and that they need to move beyond land acknowledgements, because while they mean something, I wonder how much they really do mean to people, and to put action, as I said, action behind those words of what a land acknowledgement means. What are you doing besides saying, you know, I'm acknowledging that this is Ganyak Gahaga land. After the meeting is over, what are you doing about that to help the Ganyak Gahaga people or other Indigenous nations to make sure that their land is protected and their human rights to self-determination are respected?
So I will say that I will acknowledge that I am in Toronto, which is on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and it is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I also want to acknowledge that UBC spans many Indigenous territories and treaty areas, and feel free to type into the chat if you know the Indigenous territories and lands on which you are living and working. So land acknowledgement is a first step, and each of us has a role to play in reconciliation. And I think I wanted us to enter this space in this spirit. And as we enter this space, with intention, I want to tell you a story of very often I do these sort of neurodiversity introductions to large companies, and we had a leader in our company in not in the company, but we had a leader who was present. And she told a story of visiting a Northern Indigenous community, and she noted that in that community, when a baby is born, the family and all the elders in the community, they gather and they observe the child as they are and as they grow. And if, for example, the baby cries a lot, then they will say that this child will use their voice in our community, and they follow the child's natural abilities as they grow. And so it is in this spirit that I want us to enter this space. And so imagine what could be true if we followed in this tradition at home, in our learning or in our coaching or in the context of work. So here we are. I wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. There are several members of our community here and potentially some experts from the wider community who are supporters of us. And so let me just take a moment to introduce myself. I like to say I'm the architect of this thing that we're building together. So I am both an advocate and a member of the neurodivergent community. I am late diagnosed female. So that's a very specific category. I'm also a parent of a 26-year-old who was diagnosed post-concussion. So understanding that neurodiversity can be acquired through different stages of life. I've been a leadership coach for more than 18 years. I am now an educator, mentor, and supervisor of other coaches. And I specifically work with neurodiversity in the workplace. I'm also a mentor coach, assessor, and guest lecturer in the UBC Certificate in Organizational Coaching, which is kind of how this partnership came about. About 90% of my clients are neurodivergent. I've supported leaders who are, for example, recovering from cancer-related brain fog, returning to the workplace. Uh, I have supported folks who are either disclosed, undisclosed, diagnosed, or undiagnosed. And like many of us, I entered this with an eye to solving the problem, that which is mine, how to enable education to work for me in the world of coaching, and how could I allow my whole self in a learning environment that works for me. A little bit of an introduction to folks who are here today. Um, so first of all, I'm very happy to introduce Alex Baltadano, who is, she's just everything, co-lead facilitator. Um, I just really want to honor Alex for this incredible journey that we continue to walk together. Jo Davis, who is a mental health coach herself and who is program alumni and now guest facilitator. Jackie Connolly, also, she's alumni from our program and alumni from UBC, COC. And now she is both an alumni leader in our community, the Coaching Neurodiversity at Work community, as well as this COC program. And Sonia, who is also program alumni uh, and brings indeed a wealth of insight from a learner perspective. And you'll hear from each of these folks as we continue our time together today. So, what is it we plan to cover today? What makes us different? What to expect in the course? Is it for you? Is it for somebody you know? A little bit about tuition and registration. And most important of all, you'll be hearing some voices from our alumni and have an opportunity to ask questions. So just keeping an eye on the chat. Is there more? Oh, thank you so much for all of the declarations of territories here in the chat. If there's more that you were expecting to be covered or unanswered questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of carry on. So the question arises, why are we doing this? Why this? Why now? I think probably you're noticing that there's a rise in visibility for certainly for ADHD globally, certainly for some of the more um, uh, uh, mm, certainly for many of the neurodivergences, there's a rise in visibility. Overall, in our coaching and leadership, there is a need for a justice-informed lens. It's a rapidly developing field. Um, just learning the basics. Some really large companies are really just starting to learn the basics of what does neurodiversity mean. So part of what I do in my work when I don't have this hat on is I work for some of the world's leading employee and family assistance programs, and I do intro sessions for coach for neurodiversity. So in the workplace, we're just starting to understand what does it look like in the context of work. I've literally done the basics with thousands of people at this point. And because this is a rapidly developing landscape, the knowledge base is expanding exponentially weekly. And the pace of change and learning has certainly deepened in the last little while. I want to say that this course is designed with and for, and so it's based on, our own lived experience. It's based on research, and it's the learning itself is designed for folks who may be questioning or may be neurodivergent. So you will be learning alongside neurodivergent leaders, not just about them. So it's more than inclusion, it's innovation, it's leadership, it's systemic change. It's an opportunity to develop some of your thinking and some of your competency where it comes to intersectional identities in the workplace. The other thing I want to say about why this, why now, is if we think about neurodiversity, which is, the normal variation in all human brains, like your brain doesn't look like the next person's brain and so on. There isn't, like a standard brain X-ray and they all look the same. So that's neurodiversity. But when you talk about diverging from that, folks who may be diagnosed, folks who may be functioning differently from a neuro or a biological or a psychological or a social perspective, we're already here. Neurodivergence is already sometimes in the system. We are 10 or 20% of the population. We're already here. So as a leader, as a coach, as a client, it's already in your system. So that's a pretty good reason for why now. And again, it shows up in coaching or in leadership conversations when a person discloses, or when a person maybe has a recent recognition or a curiosity about neurodivergence. And it might also be showing up for you as a coach or as a leader. And this is a quote from one of my favorite books, from one of my favorite leaders. And so it just really speaks to the idea that if we think about the bell curve, and if in a bell curve, maybe 3 to 8% of folks are outliers, neurodivergent people are outliers, except maybe if outliers were 10 or 20% of the population. But being that we are outliers, it requires a different kind of a conversation, one that is really rooted in empathy, really rooted in feeling, really rooted in connection. And so I want to talk a little bit more deeply about that. First of all of this comes from research. So this is research informed. It is rooted in community, and it also acknowledges that each person who shows up here might have some level of masking, might have some level of burnout, might have some level of different kinds of realities based on their own identity. And if some of this language is new for you, feel free to ask questions. If it's language that resonates with you, feel free to send up a heart or two, or a thumbs up, or a smile, or anything like that. I do want to say, and Alex, as usual, I'll maybe get you to speak to in a couple of slides from now. But I do want to say that, both Alex and I we are instructional designers from the ground up and adult educators, right? So we're using principles like universal design, which is a principle that originated in architecture, actually. Um, and how we design, for example, there is not a requirement for you to appear on camera in our course. We have visually designed the course for low stimulation. Um, Not a lot of visuals, flashing lights, and so on. And there's a lot of optionality and agency involved here. So, from how the assignments are submitted to how participants show up in live calls. Um, we also have used universal design for learning in the design of the program, so baking it into the design of the program. And then we've also drawn on our own lived experience in terms of sometimes courses have an over reliance on verbal processing. Um, we don't have a one size fits all for assessments in terms of how you enter and exit the course. You'll get, once you get into the course, you'll have access to the whole course and everything that is there. So you can kind of noodle around at a pace that suits you. You'll get all the agendas in advance. Um, we also will accommodate quiet thinkers, spontaneous processors, and so on. It's a shared learning environment, and we're also learning as we go. So I think Alex and I are certainly learning that every cohort is different. Every group of people and how they come together is one is different from the next. And so it's our being responsive to that from a justice lens. Um, yeah, I don't know. Alex, do you want to go? Do you want me to keep going? It's just sometimes nice to hear from somebody else.
Yeah. So I definitely think, like you said, it's an ever evolving course as we learn more and more ourselves, for sure. Um, the program, it is 14 weeks, fully online. Like you said, there's asynchronous pre-work that you work through. You read or watch or look at it's not always a reading, but the material for the week. We have the questions pre-posted that will be asked during class to discuss with others. And then so everything's, like she said, given to you all at once so you can look through it as needed. There's no pressure to look at it either until you need to look at it. The live sessions, we're going to have Thursdays from 10 or 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific time. And if it's needed, we can have a second one Friday, same times, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific time. Not sure what cohort model means here, but it is accredited through the ICF, the International Coaching Federation. Live sessions will be recorded and then they're posted onto the Canvas. So if you miss a class, there is a please watch the recording and then do an assignment because part of the accreditation is being in the live classes. Um, Anything that I'm missing, Deb?
No, but I do want to go to like a little deeper into the anatomy, right? Like, so we'll
Mhm.
do the program at a glance and then we'll do like the anatomy of a session, right? So, do you want me to speak to this one? And then you can go with the anatomy.
Sure.
Cool. Okay. Okay. So there are 4 units in the course. Units 1, 2, and 3 are structured similarly, and Unit 4 is what I affectionately call Deborah Unhinged, and it's a little bit more creative. Um, so when we get to the fourth section or the fourth unit, there's more. It's more multimedia. So there's podcasts and there's art and there's music and really something I'm thinking a lot about and why I wanted to highlight this is just the idea that we're talking about coaching neurodiversity in the context of work is by talking about this, by studying this, by being part of this, we're working with a very small segment of the neurodivergent population. The reality is that there is a very large percentage of the population that is aspiring to be in the context of work, churning out of the context of work, and many other different scenarios like that. So the Voices and Views piece attempts to sort of just broaden our horizons. But we really need to enter this at Unit 1, which is like, what are the foundations? Let's all get on the same page. Let's start thinking about neurodiversity and what it means in the greater sense of the word. In the Unit 2, we start looking at it more closely in the workplace. And then in Unit 3, it's more sort of closely aligning all of this, bringing this together in neuroaffirmative coaching. And as we work through the program, we have a model, and our model so it's called the Integrated Coaching Framework for Neuroaffirmative Coaching. It is a model of all of the elements that are involved in neurodiversity in the context of work. And it is both a conceptual model, a coaching model. We are playing with it and making it come alive. So that's kind of the big anatomy of the program. But I also wanted to, um, yeah, I don't know how much this slide is worthwhile. I do want to get to this slide, Alex. I think this is the one that really will the slides be shared? I haven't been asked that before. I don't have a problem sharing the slides, Brian. Do you have a way to do that? Yeah, so Brian, we
Yes.
can share the slides. Yes. Live sessions are recorded, except for the fact that there are a significant portion of the live sessions are breakout rooms. And so, of course, the breakout rooms are not recorded.
But
Um,
we do
yes,
uh
the debrief.
the debrief, we digest and what have you learned and what are you getting out of the live sessions. So there is that in and that will be recorded.
Yeah, yeah. So the I want to say the private processing of the folks in the program is not recorded, but the what do we take away from that and what have we learned from that processing, that part is recorded. Um, and it's recorded really solely for the purpose of the missed sessions. It's not getting shown anywhere. Um, Oopsie. There we go. Okay. So anatomy of the session. I have too many things overlapping my slides. Such a neurodivergent thing. Here we go. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so each session will look exactly the same. We have a page where you're going to read about like unit 1, what is this? Session 1, it's kind of giving you maybe a brief like one paragraph, what are you getting into? Then the readings, like we said, it's going to be readings, it could be podcasts, music, um art, especially in the fourth unit. Um, but here, articles, LinkedIn articles, um, academic articles, and books. Then after that, it's the what, so what, now what. And that's a framework that is used throughout to kind of, okay, what are we looking at? Why is it important? And now what are we going to do with it? And that's kind of how we take the debrief sessions too. It's the now what of it all. Um, the discuss the reading before joining live, that's where it's typed or orally or however you would like to engage, but it's an asynchronous discussion with your classmates on the readings and what you have um, gotten from them. Then you
And
come to class. Oh, sorry.
sorry, I'll just say that this is, probably many of us who have been doing courses in the last couple of years have seen this format. So it's a respond to what you've read and then respond to your the other members of the cohort. And we're pretty lenient and flexible in terms of what those responses look like. So I just wanted to say that, like, it's not a big mystery. It's a very common format.
Yeah, it's a discussion. We have it in a discussion format so everyone can see your answers. We ask you to just comment on two if you are able to, or that's what I think that's what is asked required for the CCEUs. Then the class time, like we said, you're able to read ahead of time what the questions will be and what will be asked and what the intro question, there's like a let's intro question, let's get everyone settled with in pairs. Then we have two or three discussion questions depending on it. It kind of shifts. The sessions kind of shift. Units 1 through 3, we have 3 questions per breakout, and you choose which question you want to answer, and then you go from there. Um, the fourth unit has 3 breakout sessions. We're all answering the same question, but in whatever perspective or whatever materials you want to use. So the podcast, the reading, the art, however you're coming in with that. Um, then the Zoom link will always be there to join us live. So you've already kind of done the pre-work to all of that. You know what's going to happen, exactly how it's going to happen. And then insight to impact
Oh,
is another discussion.
oh, sorry,
Oh, yes,
before
the
that.
after party. You can talk about that.
So we didn't name it this, by the way. This is our first UBC cohort, named it the after party. So we wanted to make ourselves available for more informal discussion, and it just made sense to do it at the end of the session every week from everyone's perspective. So you can stay or not stay, but it's sort of 15 informal minutes that really it's kind of an ask us anything, or it's an after party. Sometimes someone brings an additional question. Sometimes we bring additional material or information that isn't strictly speaking part of the course. Sometimes it's just what's happening. Like, for example, I guess it's around 3 weeks ago now, the CBC launched a new series called The Assembly, which is 40 neurodivergent interviewers and famous Canadians. And it's such a fun, cool series. And so we had a really interesting discussion about that at the after party. So, yeah, it's a really fun part of the course that, and even Brian joined us for our after party last week. Um, to answer some questions about some certification questions and stuff like that. So, we can also bring in folks uh, if we need additional cool people like Brian to come into the after party. Okay, now's the other thing.
The insight to impact, it's a post session reflection. while it is a discussion question, there is no need to comment on another classmate's or another anyone else's posts. It's just for you to digest, but you are more than welcome to see how others are digesting. We have a couple that have said that it is a lot when they're not really digesting the material, it's a lot easier for them to see how others have digested it to then be able to process it themselves. So we do leave those open, but there's no need to discuss back and forth.
Okie dokie. So, what do you get for all of this? Um, so you'll get a certificate from us for having completed a specialization in coaching neurodiversity at work. And you will get a certificate from UBC, which, if you are a coach, I guess regardless, it includes these continuing education units, 40 of them. We are so excited to be offering that. And why that's significant, if you're a coach, you might or might not realize if you're already a coach, is you need about 40 every renewal period. So that we're very, very excited that you can do the majority of that through us. There's some other requirements, but really you can do it in a neuro affirming way for, I think, the very first time where it comes to the ICF. And that's something that we're super, super proud of. Um, all right. Um, Practical knowledge, tools and strategies. Um, hopefully some fluency, because it's not an easy landscape to understand. And many of us are just understanding the landscape also in the context of ourselves. And the one thing that I want to say about this, as we're kind of just transitioning to a place where other folks' voices are centered, is there really is a big difference between a coach or a leader who is neurodivergent themselves and a coach or a leader who is coaching or leading from a neurodivergent, um, neuro-affirming practice lens. And a big part of that is that my neurodivergence is not the same as yours, is not the same as anybody else's. And so how do we embrace all of that in our leadership or coaching conversations? So I think what I'd like to do for the moment is stop sharing my screen and invite a couple of different things. So we have some voices from our pilot. We have some questions and some answers. So from Tony, will this course be something that can contribute to the larger master's program? Brian, you want to take that?
Sure. So currently, the way things are set up is that if you complete the certificate in organizational coaching, which is an ICF level 2, for the Royal Roads, this and the master's program that Tony's talking about is the Royal Roads Masters in Executive and Organizational Coaching. You would get equivalency for the level 2. If you did our certificate, you get equivalency as though you did their certificate, which is the first leg of completing their master's. This program isn't part of that. This one you get the CCEUs. And again, if you're new to coaching, you can build off of that to go a portfolio route, towards an ICF credential, or again, there's other shorter coach training programs that might work well if you're there. But this one doesn't ramp into the masters, and we don't have equivalency for this one in their masters.
Thank you. I was not aware that's available at all, so I really
Mm-hmm.
appreciate the knowledge coming from Tony as well as from you, Brian. Um, I'm gonna A little bit lost here on my screen, not surprisingly, because I wanted to center some of the voices um, from our team, right? So we've heard from Alex already. Um, Maybe wanted to hear from both Sonia and Jackie in terms of your experience in the program.
Sure, I can start if that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, I'll just tell you who I am. I'm Sonia Weisenbacher, and I came to the pilot program via the Certificate in Organizational Coaching program. An invitation was extended to a number of us, and I immediately jumped on the opportunity, uh, simply because it was an area that I was interested in. Professionally and personally, I was working with folks who I thought might be neurodivergent, but really I didn't know enough about it. Uh, Even though I have children who are definitely, uh, they have multiple profiles on that, in the spectrum. So my training, I'm a chartered accountant. I'm an entrepreneur, working with my husband in multiple businesses. And I'm also a family business consultant. So I work with business families, helping them transition to the next generation of owners and leaders. So I was doing a lot of facilitation, and for me, learning more about coaching and facilitating folks who work differently and think differently, it's been a real benefit for myself. I'm also accredited. I'm an ACC, um, and what I found in this program for myself was that I discovered that I'm also on the spectrum, but I've been really excellent at masking. I've been in leadership roles throughout my entire career. And so this has just given me an opportunity to better understand how to manage situations, um, how to guide my clients. In my coaching, I felt I've changed the way I coach, and being more flexible and understanding of what people's needs are. And I've also given myself some grace as well. So for me, um, it's been hugely beneficial. And I have to acknowledge that Deborah and Alex have been totally amazing. It was really an opportunity. And I feel really honored to have been part of this pilot program because it gave us a chance to really work together. And it also created a sense of community. And I'm excited to be a part of this growing field and staying connected with the community that I'm becoming a part of.
Hmm.
I hope I didn't say too much or too little.
That was
I
amazing.
I could
Thank
go
you.
on and on and on, but I think I've said enough for the moment. Happy to answer any questions later.
I think there's a few folks, you've gained a few new, certainly sisters here in the group. So thank you. That was amazing. And I think I love that the mention of the growing community. So part of our ideal scenario here is that folks are becoming part of a broader community in which we're expanding in so many different ways. I mean, Jackie and I just recorded our first podcast for the alumni. It's exclusively right now for the alumni community. And we had to kind of do the rehearsal, get the kinks out because we are starting to bring in experts. So the materials that you're reading in the course, we'll have them into the alumni community live, the authors of these materials. So really to bring it alive for the group, that's very exciting. Yeah, we're very excited about that. So our first guest, I don't know if I should even announce. Oh, Patty! Patty's here. So Patty is one of our, Dr. Patty Gently is we read her materials in our community, and Patty specifically talks about uh, gifted folks. And so that is also part of the puzzle. Thank you for being here, Patty. Um, Amazing. Jackie, do you want to say a word or two?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jackie Connolly. I'm a coach. I'm a graduate, I think Deborah mentioned, of the UBC COC program. Um, People always ask, what cohort are you from? I can never remember the number. I think 16, but don't quote me on that. It was last year. Um, and I mean, this isn't an info session about that program, but I will say I learned so much about not only coaching, but myself in that program. And who knows where my life will go, but my learnings from that program will stay with me for a very long time. So I'm very grateful for that. Um, let's see. I am a coach. I work with folks who do identify as neurodivergent, and I think we can really understand that a lot of folks might not know if they are. And so I call myself a neuro-inclusive coach. And so how can we um, create space for people to show up in the best way that works for them? This is kind of the foundation of where I begin from with people, and that for me is really important. I identify as neurodivergent, and how I might be able to show up one day might be very different than how I can show up the next day. So Deborah talked about the course being built on universal design. And so not only are you able to learn about that in this program, but you're kind of, or I guess you are experiencing it at the same time, which is a really cool thing to be in. Um, I think a couple of things that stood out to me from the program were this, like Deborah and I were having this conversation the other day too, this combination of like information, resources, learnings mixed with um, lived experiences from people in the group that are sharing, and this application of all of that. So this like really cool combination of these things that you're able to hear from others, get information, resources, and then figure out how to apply that and hear from others on how they're doing that. So I think this is kind of that so interesting learning space that I appreciated being in. Um, Also, there's also the ICF, and I don't know if I'm sharing things that shouldn't yet be shared, but maybe if that's worth mentioning, um, kind of looking at the core competencies from the ICF that are the foundation of our coaching, and how that can be applied to, used, referenced in coaching folks who may be neurodiverse. So I think if we look at like tools that you get from the program and how to apply those, that was a really wonderful learning for me as well. And then I also wear an alumni hat. So, like Deborah mentioned, creating space for continued learning beyond the program. So that's something that I am grateful to be supporting as well. So maybe I'll pause there.
Thank you. We also have Joe Davis here. Thank you, Jackie. That was very helpful. Jackie and I, our work together is kind of growing arms and legs, and this is what is happening right now as the community grows. So too we grow in our depth and breadth together. Um, the Really there's an element here of a rising tide lifts all ships. It's a really important part of the philosophy behind what we're developing and what you have the opportunity to be in on the ground floor of, because this is cohort 2 at UBC that's coming up in January. I also want to acknowledge that Joe Davis is present, and Joe has been a longtime associate and went through the program and is now also a guest facilitator. So, Joe, did you want to come on?
Sure, I'm here. Can you see me okay? Yeah. Yeah. Hi, my name's Joe, and I am a coach. I'm a PCC accredited with the International Coaching Federation, and I have my own coaching practice where I work with a lot of people that are leaders, and also I work in mental health. So my experience has been that I have coached many people who are neurodivergent, um, A, without knowing, and B, with knowing if they've been disclosed, and found myself really needing more training and more knowledge. And so this course was incredible. And um, first of all, there's gave me so much knowledge around neurodiversity and neurodivergence. I'm not a neurodivergent person. And so um, it was so wonderful for me to experience the program with many people that were neurodivergent. And it was so rich for my own learning. And so there really was an increase in awareness uh, around what is needed to be a good coach for someone who is neurodivergent. And I really did learn so much. Just from how I set up my practice, how present I am in a coaching session, um, how I structure my questions. And so really learning now, like from my original training to like, what are the adaptations I need to make to be a good coach for someone that's neurodivergent? And as we know, it's, as Deborah said, 20% plus, maybe more in the population. And so, um, we are coaching people who are neurodivergent, whether we know or not. And so I think as a coach, I really feel compelled to learn and to be a good coach for everyone. And yeah, so this neuroaffirmative lens, I feel like it's starting to really show up in my coaching, and I'm feeling much more confident around coaching people who are neurodivergent, who are disclosed or undisclosed. And there's lots of tools I have now and ways I think that are different. And I've certainly unlearned many things and learned others. And yeah, so, and also as Jackie was saying, the community is so wonderful and supportive. And I'm so glad to be a part of it. Yeah. So I think that's all I have to say, and happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Joe. I do want to open up for questions, and I'm feeling extraordinarily neurodivergent in this moment. Juliana asks a question about the day. Fridays are what's on the website, Brian. So here we are on Fridays.
I think so. Is that a question for me?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something for you and I to take offline, but I think we're committed at this point to Fridays.
Yeah, that's unless for some reason, and you're welcome when you apply to also inquire about this. If we get a wave of requests saying like anytime other than Friday, 11 to 1 Pacific time, then we would reach out and be in communication with people. So if there's something important there, please let us know. Just so you know, for those of you who aren't as familiar with us, Deborah's running this program. It's myself, Kels Davidson. It's kind of my partner in crime for the other programs here. Jackie is one of our alumni leaders, and then there's Cynthia, and along with Andrew, Andrew Goad, and Cynthia is the other person who's kind of runs all the back side of everything here. So when you reach out to us, you really are reaching out to one of us, and so we can get stuff done for you. Okay, so invitation is let us know what'll work best, and if there's anything that we can adjust and get in conversation about, we'll do that.
Amazing. I also see a question from Natalie about when is the first graduating class expected? I'm not exactly sure how to interpret that question. Anybody? So,
We're finishing up a cohort now in 2 weeks.
okay. Yeah, so cohort one at UBC. So we did a pilot that was not with UBC. Then we did cohort one at UBC that is finishing up in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And then we'll be starting cohort two in January. I think, is that the question, the way I should interpret that?
That's how I'm reading it. It's party time in 2 weeks. You get to start writing those letters of completion and all sorts of exploding emojis and party things on Zoom.
Yeah,
Covered.
it's really fun like at this moment, right? Like it kind of is like almost school's out for summer. And the group has been together for like 14 weeks and the class was a little bit on the small side, so people have gotten to know each other really, really well. This is not surface level getting to know you. This is getting to know you really, really well. So I'd love to hear any other questions? Any other answers? Amazing. More about the fee structure and is it paid all at once? That's definitely a Brian question.
All right. Again, reach out. Cynthia is the one that you want to talk to. So if you email like our general coaching.exl at ubc.ca, you'll get Cynthia, or you can reach her at cynthia.tam, Tam, at ubc.ca. I'll put that into the chat. Yeah, and you can. She's very good at working with payments, so you can pay up front. Obviously, is preferred, but we know that that's not accessible for everybody, and so you can talk to her about that. And she's very good at figuring it out. I'll put her
Okay,
email in the chat here.
thank you. So I also want to say, I'm happy to have conversations with folks as well. So you can find me on LinkedIn. It's one of the advantages of having an unusual last name. I used to be Miller. I'm not anymore. So it's very easy to find me on LinkedIn. Coaching Neurodiversity at Work also has a LinkedIn company page. We have a LinkedIn page for alumni, but we also have a company page. And so we try to take a little bit of a leadership role in the greater context of work and bringing neuroaffirming practices to the forefront. Oh, thank you, Julia. Thank you. Brian's got that. Yeah, what else do we have? So Krista says she's not a coach, but in HR. You'd like to know what steps I would take to become a coach. I specifically want to focus on neurodiversity. So we have in our current program, we have 4 folks who are not yet coaches or not yet credentialed coaches. They're all in various forms of practice or experience in practice. So there's a lot of different entry points that you could potentially take. Sonia, I see your hand raised. Are you wanting to speak to this question? Go ahead.
Sorry. I just, at the intro, I purposely mentioned my background. In that I was not credentialed as a coach, and my background really revolved around businesses and working with businesses, reorganizing, restructuring. But there's just something about this whole area and the interesting dynamics, the interpersonal dynamics. So I don't think it's personally, I don't think it's necessary to be a coach to be in this program. Um, and I think anybody who'd like to gain more knowledge, and if you're a learner, and I'm a lifelong learner, it's a real opportunity to connect with like-minded people. And my personal experience was that, and as Jackie and Joe mentioned, not everyone was necessarily neurodivergent, but there was a real richness in having the opportunity to connect and just learn and see things through other lenses.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's the question about what are the entry points for coaching. That came up a lot in our current cohort. Um, and so matter of fact, that's why Brian joined our after party was to help untangle that because it's a bit of a web to navigate. And so UBC Extended Learning has several entry points for that. Would that be fair to say, Brian? And then we at Coaching Neurodiversity at Work are either an entry point or an escalation point for expertise. So it really just depends where you're coming in, and then we can help you navigate to where you want to go. So many entry points and many diverging opportunities or pathways, I want to say. And we've really started to do some work with our current cohort in terms of how they can get to where they want to go. Um, so I think Brian's put something in the chat there.
It just echoes what you've said there. Yeah, this is a longer discussion because when you start to look at credentialing and coach training, there are different forms, and so core coach training, foundational stuff around the core competencies, which is the entry point for anybody looking for a credential. Sorry, it's not the, and it's again, it's not the only entry point; it's an entry point. It's the most kind of complete package. Doing this program, you would have to like add it to other programs and go through a portfolio route if you're going to pursue a credential, which is still something that people do. And it's the kind of thing we'd be happy to explore with you a little further because I know that we're past time now. So feel free to reach out with some of those questions if you're trying to make a decision and see how this fits into the biggest picture, the bigger picture for you.
Amazing. So I really want to thank anyone, everyone, all of our growing program team, um, and all the folks who joined us live here today, and to all of you who will be reviewing the video uh, in at some later point. We are very excited to be continuing this program at UBC. And as Alex and I have been saying for the couple of last few weeks, it's a new adventure, a whole new adventure that's starting even for us in January, because we know that, really is a unique confluence of the folks who show up. So thank you to you for showing up today.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Joe, Sonia, Jackie, Alex. Good to see you again.
Thank you, program
Nice to
folks.
see you, Brian.
Thanks, Joe.